there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to the Augmented Advisor Podcast, brought to you by Blue Leaf. This week on the show, John Prendergast and I are joined by Matt Reiner, CEO of Mgnt, the world's first AI-powered assistant created for advisors by advisors. Okay, I know what you're likely thinking. You're thinking, wait, what? An AI-powered assistant? I have an assistant, a human one, and that situation is doing just fine, thanks. But don't worry, we aren't going to be telling you why some new whiz-bang robo-assistant is better than your human team. Actually, it's the opposite. As you'll hear Matt share, artificial intelligence solutions like Mgnt are designed to free you and your team up from the mundane and repetitive tasks you do every day so you can focus on the high-value stuff. Trust me, you are really going to enjoy this conversation. Before we get started, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, the YouTubes, or wherever you like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a topic or a guest for the show, please feel free to reach out on blueleaf.com or hit us up on the socials. Blue Leaf, John and I are all active on LinkedIn and Twitter, and we're super easy to find. I mean, I'm at Mike Langford. Super easy. Can you remember that? I bet you can. All right, let's get to our conversation with Matt Reiner. Well, Matt Reiner, welcome to the Augmented Advisor Podcast. So awesome to have you on the show, buddy.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. I don't know what I've done to earn the honor to come back on podcast with you, but I'll accept it for now and just relish in the moment.
We're really glad to have you.
Exactly.
I appreciate it.
Speaking of relish, now you don't hear that phrase very often. Watching like Sports Center the other day, and apparently at some of these minor league baseball games and so forth, they have races between on the hot dogs, and one of them's mustard, one of them's ketchup, one of them's relish. And apparently relish had not won in a while, but relish won. And this dude proceeded to have a whole bucket of relish dumped all over his head in the crowd. Like I was just enjoying it like it was Gatorade. And I was just like, yeah, I don't mind a little relish on my hot dog or whatever, but that's a bit extreme. So,
I mean, whenever you're eating relish on a hot dog, it always drops on your leg anyways when you're eating it. So you're always getting soaked in it, but I don't know if I want to be doused in relish over the top of my head because it's enough just to have it on the leg and it's annoying.
Honestly, just thinking about it, I'm getting a little bit of sensory overload right now.
Well, like, what is the smell on the way home? Like, how long does that, like, it seeps into your clothes. You got relish in places you didn't expect to have. And the whole way home, you're like, I kind of stink.
I mean, your car is that way the whole time. I mean, they've got to give you a change of clothes and allow you to use the showers if they have them at minor league parks, which I assume they do. So they got to let you use the showers.
Fantastic. I certainly hope so. Well, what a great icebreaker that is. There's nothing better than starting an episode of a show with a little bit of laughter, a little bit of jocularity to get the conversation rolling. So, well, Matt, we're thrilled to have you on the show because Mgnt, for our listeners and viewers, it really is the epitome of an augmented advisory solution, right? Something that's going to help the advisor leverage his or her own individual ability and allow them to grow their business more effectively and also be more efficient in just the overall operating of the business. But I thought a fun way to kick things off would be with an introduction, not of you, because I've already done that in the intro for the show, but an introduction of Mgnt. So would you mind introducing the listeners and or viewers to Mgnt? Who is Mgnt and what's it all about?
Yeah, so Mgnt is a business support system for wealth managers, and that's just a fancy word or set of words that is meant to say that he's a connective tissue that really brings the technology that a financial advisor or wealth manager uses, brings them together, and then allows for the data to be unified and then acted upon to eliminate the menial mundane tasks that financial advisors, wealth managers do every day that are necessary to run our practices and our businesses and serve our clients. But if we could have our technologies fully and deeply integrated, talking to each other in a way in the background, then we could start eliminating some of those tasks to really scale and create more efficiencies and go forward. And so Mgnt is, the employee that never sleeps. He's on 24/7. He doesn't ask for PTO. He doesn't have any health benefits, but he is working and doing the things that people are doing, and he's meant to make firms bionic and allow them to work together with technology to do what they do best in this business, which is to serve clients and build deep and meaningful relationships with them. And so that's what Benjamin is doing, a first of a kind business support system for wealth managers.
Ooh.
I've got to get me an employee like that, Matt.
The best one to have on the payroll, right?
Absolutely, no question. And it's funny when you're talking. I know that your system leverages artificial intelligence. Why we want you on the show, because it's such an interesting topic. I think most advisors have heard of the term artificial intelligence, but I think most of us, think of HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey or Skynet from the Terminator series. I don't think Hollywood's done any favors to any of us in terms of understanding AI. And I wonder if you could maybe share your definition of the way you think about artificial intelligence and maybe intelligence more generally, and how you think about it at Benjamin.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, artificial intelligence is a big buzzword, right? It's a fancy buzzword in the industry. Everybody loves to say, oh, you're artificially intelligent. But I don't know if we as an industry yet know truly what it means. And I don't even know if we actually know that we're probably interacting with systems that are leveraging artificial intelligence already without us even knowing. I think it's best to really start just by the definition of breaking the word down, right? Artificial intelligence, it's two words. Artificial is artificially creating something. So it's the aspect of creating something that is real, but doing it in a different way that is quote unquote artificial, right? So we're trying to build something and replicate something that is being done in a different way. And then intelligence is smarts. And so artificial intelligence is rebuilding smarts, rebuilding what we do intelligently as a human. And that's what artificial intelligence is doing. And there's three different rungs that I view it as within artificial intelligence. First, you have natural language processing. All that is the ability to have a conversation. If you and me, John, were having a conversation, we can have it very easily like we are right now. We know what to say. I know how you're interacting. I know what your emotions mean and how to deal with those. And that's having a conversation. Artificial intelligence with natural language processing is being able to train a computer, the artificial side of it, to have that same conversation and to be able to understand what you mean when you say no or you say yes. The next set of it is robotic process automation, right? John, you and I know how to go and send an email. We go into our email Outlook client or Google client, we click new email, we type the email, we click send. That's us doing it. Robotic process automation is training a computer with that intelligence to be able to go and send that email on our behalf or to go and take an action on our behalf, whether it's in our CRM or portfolio management system or whatever it may be. And then the last one is neural network, and that is the self-training aspect, right? Think about it as a human. As we get older and we get more experiences, we become smarter and we understand things that my 2-year-old doesn't, right? My 2-year-old doesn't have the same intelligence level as me because he hasn't experienced, maybe he does, that's a whole different podcast. He may, but he doesn't have the same intelligence or understanding of different things like I do because of the experiences that I've gone through. Neural network is the ability to create that intelligence at a faster rate, leveraging different pieces of data that is just feeding into a system to train the computer at a faster rate than we can train as a human, giving the computer all of those different experiences that we would want them to understand to train so that they understand how to react in different situations. And that is the true epitome of AI that everybody strives to get to. And that's also the part of AI that people get scared of, because the training can then turn a computer into acting based on this information. It may act in the wrong way, just like a human may act in the wrong way under certain situations. So I know that's a longer than definition you may have been expecting, but that's how I view artificial intelligence.
No, I think it's great. And one of the interesting things that I find when I was listening to you speak is the way that the concept of a human sort of infuses each of the things that you talked about. And it lines up with a lot of definitions about AI that you read, right? It's really about machines learning to respond the way a human might, with judgment and sort of contemplation and intention. And I think it's it's not that the technology itself is scary, right? It's sort of all about how we use it. And the different technologies that you talked about, I think, are interesting in the way that they differ, right? So in particular, robotic process automation, for those who've never heard of the term, you can imagine all the things and keystrokes you might do in a system, and then having a way to automate it with sort of, your alter ego that will push all the buttons and click through all the screens and do what you would do. Natural language processing is sort of a whole different animal, right? It's literally reading text and interpreting it the way that a human might, and making that conversational, right? If you're scheduling, it's not you use Calendly, you're actually having a conversation with the intelligence about when are you available, what days do you prefer, and it sounds like a human conversation. So I think that human element is really important to bear in mind in terms of advisors and how they ought to think about it.
I was gonna say, what jumped to my mind when you first started talking about natural language processing and conversational AI, the more broader topic around this, was, we're old enough to remember the early days of computers, right? When computers started showing up in the workplace. And I think many of the members of our audience probably are as well. I mean, the average age of an advisor is nearing 60. It's, plus or minus a few years, depending upon which study you believe. And in the early days of computing, you used to have to know the commands to use to get the computer to do some things, right? You'd have to type this and then type enter or hit the enter key or whatever. You actually had to, you could not enter any general language, right, to get it to do something. But now we're all somewhat familiar with our voice assistants, right, to be able to use, whether it's an Alexa, Siri, or whatever Google type deal. So people getting more and more comfortable with those things. That's kind of what we're talking about here when we talk about natural language or conversational AI. So it is really fascinating that we've come that far over the last couple of decades.
And I think that, when you think about AI and you think about what it was intended, at least from my viewpoint, right? And John, you nailed it. It's to replicate a human, right? I always think about what a human does, but it's not necessary. And I say replicate, not in the sense of replace, right? I say to augment, hence the name of this podcast. But computers can do things a lot better than humans can. But there's a lot of things that humans can do a lot better than AI and computers. And that's the EQ aspect and the emotional understanding and to be able to hold their hand. Computers are ones and zeros, and they don't care about emotions. They're just going to do, and it's hard for them to adjust and adapt. And AI is trying to make it to where it can adapt, but I don't think it'll get to the emotional intelligence side of it. But it can make us as human beings more efficient in using our skill sets a lot better. And I think that that's where we're trying to take it within wealth management, because wealth and money is such an emotional and emotionally driven and irrational aspect of our lives that we act irrationally and we're driven by emotions. And if we can give more time to the human being to walk them off the ledge, which is something a computer can't do, well, let's give the computer all the data to crunch and to analyze and to figure out doing the next best action, because that's not worth our time. Our value as advisors is to emotionally connect with our clients and handhold them to make the best decisions and help them be less irrational or less silly with their money in their day-to-day.
You touched on something important there, I think, that advisors should understand about AI, and it's this aspect of learning or the adaptability of the system. And certainly with natural language processing or the neural networks, these are all systems designed to learn from the input. And that requires feedback, right? It requires saying, yes, this was right. No, that was wrong, so that the system will learn. Can you talk about the ways that some of these technologies get feedback? So whether it's the natural language processing or the neural nets that you use?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? And I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions about AI in the space. People think that you just go and get an AI software and it's going to just start doing your job for you right out the gate, right? It's just going to start, you want it to go do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to do it. And it's like you plug it in and boom, you got your assistant going for you. And it's just not that. And what we found as we're going and implementing Benjamin into other firms is that there is a big issue with data management in this industry. And I don't think that that's too shocking. I don't think that that's too shocking, right? I've said it multiple times on my podcast and on my blog and everything of that nature, is that we are an industry that has more data than all these other systems that are really good at using data to provide us recommendations that are personalized to us. We know people's fears, worries, concerns, what makes them happy, what makes them not happy. We know when people are going to get divorced before they're going to get divorced, before they tell their spouse they're going to get divorced. We know all this data, but we have no ability to control it and then utilize it in a way that best serves the client. And that's a challenge. And so when it comes to training AI, neural network, or natural language processing, it's a matter of spending time, right? The more time you have and the more controls you have around your data, the better your system's going to get and the quicker it's going to get there. And it's a matter of, when you have a response, right? Like in our system, when there's a response, we have our team internally looking at all the responses that go back and forth with Benjamin. And if Benjamin doesn't react the right way, then we go in and train, because we are the human that can train him. And we then put in, 5 or 10 other examples of that same communication to help him understand it the next time. But without that training, he's just going to continue to say, I don't understand, when the person asks a really legitimate question, is my meeting tomorrow, right? If he doesn't know that, then we're going to go train him that is a question that goes to, this is the intent, and this is the response that we need to be able to choose from, and go and answer it. And next time, here's 15 other examples of how that can be done. The beauty of it is that these companies that do have a lot of data, like Amazons of the world and the Facebooks of the world and the Googles of the world, are opening up their APIs to where teams and companies, and this is the beauty of the innovation that we have in this space in the country right now, is that you can go and tap into those systems and learn a little bit quicker than you would if you had to go gather all the data like we used to have to do back in the day, go gather all the data ourselves and train it. Now we can use Google systems or Amazon systems and Facebook's inputs to help train on different variables and different intents, and get our systems a little bit better. So it starts with having good data in. It starts with having the understanding that you have to work at training the system, and it's not just going to work by itself. Even a neural network does not work by itself. You have to train it over time, and then and then it goes about executing on that training, right, and committing to it. And it's a hard thing to do for many companies, and that's why I think AI is taking a little bit longer to get into our space.
So to be successful, you need lots and lots and lots of good quality data, and you need to give it lots of feedback. It makes me think about sort of the model, for those advisors out there who have kids. It sort of makes me think of a toddler, and how, early AI systems might have been like a 2-year-old, and you had to spend all that time to make it a PhD, right? And more modern AI systems might come out as sort of a teenager, right? You still have to train them up, but they're starting from a lot further along, and the more love you give the system and attention and feedback, the more successful they're going to be in life. So I guess it's a little bit like raising our kids.
John, we were actually talking about that in this morning's prep call with us, planning for this episode here. We were talking about how important it is for AI to get data, large data sets, right? So that, like, for instance, we were talking about, Benjamin wouldn't work if it was only at one firm. Like if it wasn't getting the data from many, many firms' inputs in order to really start to learn, because one small firm that has 3 advisors probably isn't generating enough data to really make it smarter, right? But it sounds like not only have you, because you have so many firms on the platform, but you're also leveraging a lot of the inputs, as you mentioned, with Amazon's data sets there and so forth, that it's actually way more powerful than one might think. It's not even just limited to the data set that advisors are giving it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the example that John provided with the training and the teaching and coming in as a teenager, and even as an adult, there's a lot of learning that you have to do, right? You're constantly learning and teaching yourself. So even as a very sophisticated, 40-year-old, you're still learning, right? There's still things that you have to learn. And that's the same thing with AI models. And yeah, we benefit from the community, but we also benefit from the outside inputs that we're able to put in and train on the Benjamin. And I think that the challenge that our industry, and all industries have, right? You think about, where AI is being used today, right? It's usually like a one-to-one training on trading, right? We see it a lot in trading with the algorithmic trading based on these variables. And those are usually kind of 1-0 variables. If if this is trending above this, then do this, and you can then layer those on top of each other. But when you start to come to try to replicate human action that has thought in it and those type of things, it becomes a lot more difficult, and you need a lot more human interactions to help with that, right? And what I mean by that is to try to replicate someone determining whether I need to schedule a meeting or not doesn't tend to be a 1-0. One firm will go and look at one-to-many, right? They'll have many different situations. It's if they met in the past 6 months and if the person sent an email. And so you're going to look at multiple different data points. And then another firm may say, I have to look at these 15 other variables that are all kind of, they're somewhat up to you to make the decision as a human. And I feel that you'll rationalize that. And that's where it becomes really difficult. But that's also when you crack that nut, that's where it becomes really powerful, because those are the things that we do day in and day out that impacts everybody across the firm, as opposed to just one division of trading algorithmically. And I think that's, and that comes with, you have to continuously train them like an employee. And the more people that you're touching inside the firm, the more trainings you're getting on how people think, so that you can then implement that into your data model to make him better and smarter.
Very smart, very smart. So the next section I wanted to talk about was, should advisors be afraid or be excited? And the reason why I say that is, the advisor community just came off of a 5-year run in which everyone was telling them their days were numbered. The robo-advisors are coming to make them completely irrelevant in the world. And yet the robo-threat really didn't make that big of a dent at the end of the day. In fact, I think many advisors actually leveraged robo-advisors. They started realizing like, oh, this is actually kind of awesome, because we can use some of the robo technology in our business and take, that heavy lifting off our plate. So, here we are in 2021, and every day I see, like Benjamin, I see some other new AI powered tool in the news. What level of concern and or excitement should advisors have as they think about how artificial intelligence might impact their business? Obviously, Benjamin is a good, but what else are you seeing?
I think that news sells on fears. Headlines sell when they're fearful and not positive. And I think that that AI is going to be a enhancement to what we do. And if you're concerned that it's not, and that you're starting to worry about your value as an advisor because of all of this innovation and technology that's going out, not to do a kind of a shameless plug here, but go check out my book that's coming out at the end of the summer called Dr. Cash Will See You, which is a whole fable around the value advisors provide. And you'll read it and you'll see that you're valuable as a financial advisor, that you should not let headlines tell you that you're not valuable. No matter what AI does, no matter how far it goes, if you're looking at it as a threat, you're missing the point. If you're looking at it as an enhancement to what you're doing and the value you provide, which is creating and establishing and deepening meaningful relationships with clients to help them overcome their emotional baggage that comes with all of us as humans, if you see it as that, then you're seeing that as a positive. And all this innovation is going to make us better to be able to deliver more services, more value, and more servicing to our clients, which makes our business even stickier and our value even higher because we're taking off the workload of things that we don't need to be doing. And it's hard. Change is hard. When things are going well and this industry has lived a great life for a long period of time, we don't want to change. Just because I've been doing paperwork the same way with a manila folder and PDFs, printing out and having them signed and scanning them and sending them to the custodian, doesn't mean that that's the best way of doing it. It's comfortable, and making the switch to DocuSign is really uncomfortable, and it's going to have hurdles, but it's better. And there's ways to prove that it's better, because anybody that's building augmented or AI technology can show you how your time is better spent not doing the manual labor of paperwork, and why DocuSign or another system is better in that way. And so I think it's it's overblown, just as robos were overblown as replacing advisors back in 2010. I think that this whole trend is, and everybody's saying that it's a fee compression and that you're having to drop your fee. I just don't buy into that. And I'm fortunate to have sat in the seat of an advisor and building a book of business and building an RIA and now building a technology. I'm not going to go build a technology to replace what two businesses that I helped to create. right? I'm going to go build it to enable them to do more because I see the power of it. And I think that that's a different perspective. And I just think that financial advisors are so valuable, and I'm an advocate for them. And what you do is not necessarily what shouldn't be what AI and augmented technology can do. It should be the other stuff that it cannot do at that point.
You know, one of the things that, you know, as a technology company, and Blue Leaf is a great example of this, is that, you know, there's always some core use cases for the solution that'll drive an advisor's initial decision to buy the product. They're like, oh, I need that. Like, I need that thing. In the early days of Blue Leaf, it was being able to see your client's accounts in one spot. And for as an advisor, like, oh, this is wonderful. I get to, you know, see this holistic view and provide this to my clients too. And they get to see all their stuff in one spot. What an awesome experience. But then over time, you know, the advisor, the user will discover additional value for their business. And they'll find things that, hey, this is also something that makes my life a lot easier or better or more profitable, whatever. So what are those initial use cases for Benjamin that you find advisors are most excited about out of the gate? Like, this is going to help me a lot. I can't wait to make this happen.
You know, so the use cases that actually are most desired are the ones that I didn't think were going to be most desired, right? That weren't really the ones that I thought was the sexiest part of the product or what I was most excited about. And, you know, I think that really right now where you're seeing it, so Benjamin helps throughout the whole client life cycle or client journey, right? From prospecting to meetings, to onboarding, to maintenance, and to know your client. But what we've seen, because it's across the board, every firm has to do it, is it's around that meetings vertical is really where there's a lot of value add. Because whether you're a large firm or you're a small firm, whether you're a fast growing firm or a slow growing firm, you still have to meet with clients and prospects no matter what, right? You still have to have those meetings, and meetings, if you think about it, is more than just the meeting with the client, right? It's the scheduling aspect of getting the meeting on the calendar. It's the preparation for the meeting. It's having the meeting, and then it's the post meeting, and it's the notes and the necessary follow through items that have to be there. And so what we found is that meetings vertical has been really attractive to operations teams, client service associates and managers and advisors, anywhere from using workflows that have already been created and calendar links that have already been established to at least just coordinate the meetings and getting the calendar links out and continuously following up and sending those emails and making it very simple. And then, you know, anything from the meeting preparation, right? Prior to the meeting, having Benjamin go and interact with all the different integrations, pull information from the custodian, pull information from the portfolio management system, pull information from the CRM, aggregate it together and deliver it to the appropriate people that are having the meeting, while also helping the client prepare for the meeting as well with certain pieces of information that are different than what's delivered to the advisor. And it's all a matter of turning what we have as an industry and what I realized when I was sitting in the chair as an advisor of, it was really reactive. Oh gosh, I have a meeting tomorrow, let me prep for it. Or this client sent me an email about cash or about wanting something and having to react to it. And what we're trying to do is shift that to make it be proactive, where you don't have to think about it. Benjamin's the one that's proactively delivering what is needed by looking at the information that's out there and keeping you ahead of what your clients are going to do. And that's where I think the value comes. And so that meeting vertical has been really efficient and effective. You know, Benjamin was born out of the onboarding vertical, which is what we solved for our own two RAs to streamline that process with ensuring DocuSigns are signed and accounts are opened, and when they're funded, getting that to the trading team to trade the accounts and notifying the clients throughout that process, which can be a stressful time when monies are transferring over. But those are the two main verticals that we see right now that people like to dig into, and then once they get in there, they see the opportunities that Benjamin can provide outside of those.
I love that. You know, it's really interesting. I'm not sure if you are familiar with who Guy Kawasaki is. You know, he used to be a venture capitalist, and he's gone on to just be a prolific author and kind of thought leader in the startup space. And he had this famous saying about, like, don't get upset when you find out that people are using your product for purposes you didn't intend them to use. Like, you didn't think of, like, hey, this is how they're going to use it. Actually be excited. Like, oh my gosh, somebody's using my product. They're using it differently than I really thought of. And, oh, they're thinking this is what it's for. let's dive into that, right? Because you're finding out like they're getting a tremendous amount of value out of it. That's really fascinating. And I can see that too, by the way. Anytime you're prepping for a meeting, it can be very stressful and like there's just so many things to do. I got to print out this report. I got to first get the meeting scheduled. I got to make sure everybody's on the call. Heck, when I'm getting these things scheduled sometimes is like, you can't believe how many emails and so forth they had to go through. So I can totally see it.
It's that back and forth, right? And it's that back and forth that's a challenge, and it's the coordination, and and you think about mental capacity, right? And talking about Guy, and the other thing that I always think back to Mark Zuckerberg, and he always was quoted. Everybody asked him why he wore the same thing every day. He's like, because I have a limited amount of mental capacity of making decisions in my day, and if I waste it in the morning on determining what to wear, then that's going to hurt me later on in the day when I need to make an important decision. And you think about what our teams, if they're thinking about having to send these emails out and craft them and where to go and get that information, no matter how simple it is, it's mental capacity being wasted that's not allowing them to be able to be fully into making bigger, more important, meaningful decisions later on or during the day. And that's where the impact is. That's where the value is added.
And, it's interesting because it's not the one simple decision. There are hundreds of decisions and there are hundreds of things to monitor, and you just can't keep all that front and center as a human. So, to have really what is an automatic executive assistant who can think about those things for you and then do what's necessary and just tell you when it's done. I mean, that's got to be game changing. Along those lines, what have you heard from advisors are really their biggest wow moments in using Benjamin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the idea that it actually that because they come in with a sense of there's no way that they can do that, right? There's no chance. And then when it actually does go out and follows through on the whole process, right? Using data within the CRM to then communicate with the client and get it on the calendar and then send them a meeting prep email. That's a wow moment for them, right? And how we interact with firms is, Benjamin's not supposed to be a main system, right? Like I said at the beginning, it's a connective tissue of all the systems. And if we do our job the right way, then really only one person in a firm should ever log into Benjamin, and it should only be a couple times a month. Everybody else should be living in the other systems and never even really know that Benjamin's there. And we do that on purpose. We don't try to hide anything, but that's because we don't want to provide yet another platform to learn and another username and password to remember and another URL to have at the top of your bookmark list on your Google Chrome browser. And so what we tend to do is when we launch this inside of firms, we actually do just a very simple communication where Benjamin is communicating with advisors and CSAs when accounts that are managed by them based on the data that we're pulling in from all the different systems gets funded. And we just send them a note from Benjamin. They don't even know that their company may have signed up for Benjamin. They start getting these, and then they start asking questions. What is this? How is it doing that? Can it do this other thing for me? And those simple, surprise and delight moments that are valuable, very simple, and just direct to them without them having to do anything spurs this innovation. And that's when you start getting really innovative firms that start using Benjamin in different ways. And so, I think it's that moment when the Benjamin boss and the economic buyer in the sales process see that first mission, as we call it, be executed on all of the different parameters that are specific and unique to that firm. It's a sense of wow at that point. And then it's a sense of relief. Wow, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now I've just taken something off my plate.
Yeah, that approach to generating surprise and delight, I think, is something that every entrepreneur, whether you're technologists like you and I or a wealth manager, should take a page out of that book and apply that to their business, because that's going to generate more clients. It's going to generate better relationships, and is really a phenomenal way to deliver value to customers. When we think about all this data and how you're working in the background, since you're not the source of the data, you're really the intelligence around the data. Can you talk a little bit about the systems that Benjamin works with, and what are the important integrations that you really depend on to be that connective tissue?
Yeah, so we look at it right now as a core technology stack for a wealth manager of having really 4 different technologies. It's your CRM, it's your portfolio management system, It's your custodian. We look at the custodian as a technology provider, right? They have technology and you interact with them, and then your calendaring and email system. And those are the core systems, right? There's ancillary systems, like your DocuSign and risk tolerance systems and everything of that nature. And then, financial planning is becoming more and more prevalent and integrated into that core tech stack, which we agree with and we're working towards. But those 4 systems are the main data points. And what our focus is in our system, as you allude to, right, is as powerful as those other systems will allow for us, right? That's a challenge as a technologist, because you tend to want to own it all and be able to control it because you are the system that's acting and you're selling your system. And to have dependencies on others is tough. But I think that hurdle and that challenge has been lessened over the past 5 to 10 years as firms have become more focused on being tech forward and innovative and opening up their APIs to give access to these data points. And the systems that we see in the core have really opened up those APIs and provided access to the main data points that we need. And so our focus now is to go and do what I say is POA, go pull the data from those systems, organize or unify that data, and then act on that data. And so the systems that are integrated, we take a very straightforward approach of identifying what systems are most used by advisors and have the most open APIs that give us flexibility. And those are who we integrate with and that we serve, and we deliver unique value props for them. And it's an interesting proposition for these other technologies to work with us because we're not trying to replace them. We're trying to actually create more stickiness in their softwares by them interacting with us, because we hope to have the power to be able to drive more utilization and power in those systems. Whereas a lot of API integrations are just to pull data in to bring them into your system so they live in your system more. And we've taken a whole kind of 180 approach on that with the system. So those data points are really powerful from those systems. The CRM, of course, is the most powerful because I think that is the heartbeat of a firm in terms of the technology, because that's where everything should and does live. And then the other ones are really powerful. Like portfolio management system is an extremely powerful one and needed, especially when you're doing investment management. You can't do it without it.
So one of the things we often hear when talking with advisors in RIA firms about any new technology is a bit of apprehension about actually the setup process for that tech, right? Like getting started, getting out of the gate can cause a little bit of like, this sounds awesome, but it's going to be a lot of work on my end, right? And then, oh my God, the ongoing management of this thing might be hard. You mentioned the Benjamin boss, somebody at the organization who's the Benjamin boss and so forth. And in fact, in my years evangelizing and talking about technology with advisors, one of the first things I get anytime I've been in front of a room, somebody will raise their hand, can my assistant do this for me? Like, right? Like I don't want it's, and that may sound almost like it's insulting to some advisors, like, come on, I'm capable of doing it. And not saying you're not, but it's just, there seems to be a little bit of that. So what if you wouldn't mind walking us through like the getting started process with Benjamin and how much effort and time is required? Because, as I think about it, I'm one for automation in my life, right? So if, going back to my days where I was a spreadsheet jockey, right? I would work like 3 weeks building like some whoop ass macros and stuff, just so that going forward, it would just do the stuff for me. So I wouldn't have to do this repetitive stuff all the time. So, but usually there is some form of setup process, right? So what type of setup process and effort and time is necessary to get Benjamin up and rolling at a firm?
Yeah. So I think it's, we have to remember that I come from that seat of not wanting to adopt new technology, right? Being the advisor and, our team being like, let's go get this new technology. I'm like, no, please no. Like, let's not do that. Like, I don't want to learn a new technology. And, going through multiple CRM integration shifts, right? And how challenging that is and how apprehensive people in the firm are to go through that. And then when you get through and you're like, I did a great job. And they're like, well, this is broken and this is broken. Can they do this? And how challenging it is just to get people to learn, even though you have communication. I took that to heart. And that's one of the main focuses that when we were building this technology company, I said 2 things, right? Well, I said a lot more. As you can see, I talk a lot, but there's 2 main things I take away from this is that one is we've got to make it extremely easy for advisors to utilize. And then the second is that we've got to work really hard to get them, we've got to stay consultative with them throughout the process. The thing that what kind of rubbed me the wrong way when I was in the seat of an advisor was we buy technology, they sell us, I think it do great things, and they said, good luck, here you go. Good luck, have fun. You know all the buttons. Here's the how-to, guide, go do it. And I just don't have time to do that. And so I said, we've got to be really consultative in our approach. And so what we focused on the integration process is that, like I said, you have one Benjamin boss, you have an account executive that stays with you from implementation through at least your first 12 months, that is learning about your business, acting as a consultant to understand your processes, and is helping you build the missions for you, because that's not your job necessarily to go in and build all the missions. Our team is helping you build the missions based on your business. But the integration process is very simple. We spin up an instance literally within a minute. You get your own phone number because Benjamin can utilize text messaging if you want. You don't have to. And then the Benjamin boss is usually the person that knows your operations pretty well and knows your systems pretty well. They can go in and integrate their systems first. And it's an OAuth integration, so they're using the same username and passwords for their Wealthbox or Salesforce, their Outlook and their Blue Leaf and everything of that nature, and they connect it all in. And then all the data starts pulling in. But then for the other team members, because we need everybody's calendars, and sometimes how teams build is that each person has access to different areas or different contacts in the CRM, then what the Benjamin boss can do is actually go into integrations and integrate for someone else. And what that means is that Benjamin just sends an email to the individual to click on an authenticate link. They click on an authentication link and they put in their username and password for the software that they already know and they've already interacted with, and they never have to log into Benjamin. And that then pulls in the data and associates it with each individual person. And from there, so that can all be done within a few days. And our goal is within the first 4 weeks to have 3 missions live. We go in chunks of 3. We try to get 3 missions live in the first 4 weeks, and then we go and do 3 more missions. And then we do 3 more missions, and then we build upon it. And a mission is a task within a workflow or a task that is done by a human. And so by the end of 4 weeks, Benjamin should be trained in running 3 missions for you. And our team is the one that builds out those initial missions. And as part of the sales process and also as part of the onboarding process, we build what's called playbooks. And playbooks are meant to understand your business and your processes and your workflows, and they're baskets of missions that should be done to accomplish that overarching process or workflow. And then those are already built out in your instance, and you literally just toggle it on or you toggle it off, and Benjamin's on and running for your firm. And so that's how we do it, and it's getting better every day, right? We always are finding ways, because I want to get 3 missions done in 3 weeks, and then 3 missions done in 2 weeks, and 3 missions done in 3 hours, right? That's where my team gets frustrated with me, because that's what I'm pushing for, because I think we can get there, and we will get there. But it's a matter of making it as simple and easy as possible and seeing value as quickly as possible in the process.
So the key thing there really is that, yeah, there's work to do, but you have partner beginning to end of the process, and that you're really leveraging them for their knowledge and you're doing the grunt work. Yep. And
that's what we always come back to them, because a lot of firms, right, you see two different types of firms. You get the one firm that's like very process oriented. They've got all of their processes and workflows documented, and they've got it all built out in the workflows in their CRM. Those are kind of pretty easy, right? And we just go and take those and we replicate it and utilize that data already. But then you have the others that don't have anything, and they just think that just turning it on will create them efficiencies. And we're able to come with best practices, and we say, well, this is how we think you could do it. Here's some ideas, and we give them 3 options. Again, in the numbers of 3s, and they choose which one they want, and that's already built in and ready to go. And that's where they find value in us. And I think it's a unique way of being a technology company. One of our core values as a technology company is be human centric, and it means a lot of different things. But there's one aspect of it is be human centric, and it's meaning that we are building technology to help this industry have more and deeper human connections. And it also means be human centric in the way that we serve our clients as well, because this is a relationship business, and we should serve them the same way that they serve their clients. And that means a lot to me coming from this industry. And I just think it's a different approach for a technology company. Does it cost more? Is it more time consuming? Of course. But does it create a better relationship in doing the right thing? We believe so. And we think that it works really well.
That's pretty clear that Benjamin's a pretty powerful example of AI in wealth management. And I'm curious if we could zoom out just a little bit and get your thoughts on the industry and maybe a little bit on the future. But right now, when you look across the industry, I'm curious, what are you seeing that are interesting applications of this sort of intelligence-based technologies in wealth management?
I think that what's exciting to me is that we're in a time where what I was talking about earlier on the podcast, with an industry with so much data and not knowing what to do with it and not being able to leverage it to be able to understand when to go and communicate with clients or better understand our clients or communicate them in different ways or serve them in different ways. We're starting to get there, right? There's a lot of really cool technologies out there that are doing that. And what y'all are doing at Blue Leaf and a lot of the data and we've talked about it a lot, where y'all are seeing the industry going. Firms are just thinking about, how do I use this data not to, deceive or oversell or whatever it may be, but better serve my clients? And that's the right mentality to have. And I think that there's a lot of companies out there that are doing that. I believe that that's what we're trying to do in the industry. I think that that's what Blue Leaf is trying to do. There's a company out there called Forward Lane that's doing really cool things as well with AI and next best action. And Orion is a powerhouse, and they're doing a lot on different aspects of it, and Riskalyze as well. I think that there's a lot of innovation going in that space. And, I think that we need to get as an industry, and what excites me about where I believe the innovation is pushing this industry is that we're being pushed away from what we were, which was investment managers or investment advisors, where all we did was investments. And we're starting to get pushed away, and not to say that we shouldn't be doing investments anymore. I still think that that is a tool, but that should not be our entire house, right? That is a tool to help us build the house. And I think that where it's exciting is that we're getting pushed to being more in that relationship side of it, to do more for the client, to help them be the quarterback, to where we can start being the quarterback to help them do more estate planning and tax planning and charitable planning and lifestyle management and provide more services. And I think that that's really intriguing in this space. And the way that you do that is you got to better understand your client, and you've got to be able to better track it and scale it, because you could do that on a scale of 10 people, right? A family office that maybe only has 10 clients. I can really in depth know all of your kids and what the kids are doing and what they want to do and what you want to do and everything. But when you have 100 clients, it becomes harder, and you can utilize technology to help you better organize that to where you then can make those decisions that only a human can make. And I think that that's really what excites me. And I think that that's where our industry is going to be in 10 years, right? Investment management is going to be a smaller and smaller piece of our pie. You can still charge on that pie because it's easier to charge on that pie. That's fine. And I think that's very fair, and people are willing to pay that. But within that pie of what you're charging, I think we've got to do more than what we have done, which was just investment management. And I think that we need to utilize tools like Blue Leaf, like Benjamin, like all the other ones out there to help us get to that point, because we are capable of doing a lot more than just investment management. We are great at that, but we can do a lot more.
No, and basically what you were just saying there is, you're freeing up not only the time, but the mental capacity, right, for the advisor to better serve their clients, right? So to not have to spend, if I don't have to spend a ton of time setting up the meeting and printing out documents and coordinating with a variety of different things, or trying to remember, oh yes, we just onboarded a new client and I've got this huge checklist to go through, that if I've got some automation in my life that's taking some of that heavy lifting off my plate, I can now think about my clients differently, right? I can focus on them more intently. And I think that is a very promising thing that's likely to come here in this next decade. I love it.
Real quick, Mike, not to cut you off. I like to talk. I just want to say this one thing, because I just had an example of it this morning with an advisor. An advisor was talking to me about, do I know anything about helping them with educational planning, right? And right now, because they have this client that has, a lot of, 3 kids, a lot of 529s, they don't understand the cost of college, where they're wanting to go, and everything of that nature. And they just don't have the capacity to deal with that. Think about if we could eliminate and just create 30 minutes for that advisor to go in depth and call up an educational planning specialist and dig into all the different variables of what their kids want, their clients' kids want, and start planning out a whole map of a financial plan just for educational plan for that one client. How much more valuable is that than spending 30 minutes calling your clients to figure out what they want to trade, or going and determining how much cash needs to be generated for their money links to go out, or any of that type of stuff? That is where we should be going, is going deeper into those areas, because that value to the client is a financial stability that is unbelievably powerful and valuable for them.
But you need time to do that.
And 100%.
And the way you get time in this industry is you automate aspects of the relationship because that's where all the time goes. Automating investments only gets you so far.
Yep.
That's right.
You have 2,080 minutes in a 50-week, 42-hour week, right? You have 2,080 minutes or hours. How are you going to best use those? And it's hard to change that.
Yeah. It's awesome. I love it. This is really smart stuff. I almost feel like there's going to be a follow-up episode at some point in time because, well, three of us do like to talk. You kept on taking the ownership of it, Matt, and as the guest, we let you take your stage time. But yeah, as you know, and you've had me on your show, we can go, dude. We can just go. So I think one of the next episodes is going to be the three of us all together with some beers, sitting around the same table with microphones. Would be fantastic. Until then, however, I suspect many of our listeners and or viewers are going to want to follow up with you because this is really, really interesting. What's the best way for folks to follow up with you individually and to learn more about Benjamin?
Yeah, so to learn more about Benjamin, go to getbenjamin.com, and you can learn everything about there. And our team over there will take really good care of you. To follow and hear more insights about me, mattreiner.com. Follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Twitter. And like I said, we have a new book coming out later this summer. Dr. Cash Will See You Now. It's a great fun fable of Dr. Cash, a psychologist for financial advisors. Very short, fun read. So you'll be able to pick that up on Amazon. And if you shoot me a note, I'll be happy to send you a copy because it's meant more for the industry than it is for me to make money. And it's really fun.
Fantastic. Well, Matt Reiner of Benjamin, thank you so very much for joining us on the Augmented Advisor podcast. It's been a pleasure having you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you too.
Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the Augmented Advisor podcast. It was fantastic to have you with us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Huge thanks to Matt Reiner of Benjamin for joining us as well. I know this was a super nerdy episode, but this stuff is important. While the advisory industry sometimes gets a bad rap for being a little slow on the uptake when it comes to adopting new technology solutions, I think you and I both know that's not really true. I mean, advisors are very tech forward and they always have been. It's just kind of some regulatory stuff slows us down sometimes, right? A little foot on the brake, just making sure everything's okay and our customers are safe. But these AI and machine learning powered tools, they are absolutely the next wave and they're going to empower you to do more stuff for your clients, bring more value. So I think you can expect to see more of these types of topics on this show, okay? As I mentioned at the top of the show, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform and do us a favor. Make sure you give the Blue Leaf page on LinkedIn a nice big follow. Click that follow button because we share every episode of this show on LinkedIn and we would love to have you be a part of our community, okay? We want to hear from you, see what you think, hear what you think, and all the good stuff will trickle down into this show, okay? All right, that's it for today. Please make sure you're staying safe and be nice to each other, okay? We'll see you next time on the Augmented Advisor podcast. See ya. Bye.